am doing my wrap up in this video. Unfortunately, I am not just doing the month of March's wrap up, I'm also wrapping up February because I never made one. I never did. I never made a February wrap up. And it's not like you're really missing that much, honestly, and you'll see why. Spoiler, I didn't read a lot in February at all. And also, I'm not wearing my wedding ring. No one's getting divorced. I just left them downstairs while I was doing dishes. And I don't want to walk down the stairs to get them, so I'm just not going to wear them, so. Month of February, guys! Are you ready to see how well I did? I read 2 books in February. In my defense, if you remember way back then, I was in the middle of a show. We had tons of rehearsals. We had tech week. I had my show that went up, and then I kind of had to recuperate. So it was really exhausting, like half of the month. So I'm lucky that I got 2 books in, honestly. The first book was We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson. I still struggle. Do I want to give this a 4? Do I want to give it a 3.5? I don't know. I'm going to say 3.75. It is about a teenage boy who is abducted by aliens and is confronted with the reality that the world will end, and he is given the choice to either save the world or prevent it from happening. I thought it was a really cool take on a story that's familiar, but I really was struggling with the pace and plot development. I think the characters were pretty fine, but I wish that more progressed. I was reading the same scenes over and over and over and over and over again, which is fine with a lot of books that deal with trauma and guilt and processing feelings. I get that. That stuff is hard to get through, but without plot development happening within those scenes, it's kind of stunting the reader's experience, if you ask me. That's how I felt. I felt like this book could easily have been chopped down by at least 50 or 70 pages and still have had the same effect on me. The next book I read was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I gave this a 5 out of 5. This was the coolest book I've read in a really, really, really long time. This is a story of a man who was knocked unconscious one night and awakes the next day to find he's in a world he does not belong to. This book, from page 1 to the very last page, was super compelling, intense, high energy. I was flipping and flipping and flipping and flipping. I could not put it down. It was mind-bending. It was so weird. What a strange concept for a book. And it's really, really complex plot. Could have really been a problem for a lot of writers, but I think Blake Crouch handled it really, really well. And I didn't feel like I was encumbered with all this plot. I think he handled the really complex stuff presented here really, really well. And I was able to read it I read this in a day and a half. I was also at work one of those days. So, but I loved this book, and I usually don't read sci-fi, but this was amazing. Okay, so here we are, month of March. I read 5 books in March. The first one was an e-arc from NetGalley. So this is The Butterfly Project by Emma Scott. It's about a graphic designer who moves to New York City and she meets a boy. Gave this book a 3 out of 5. It was kind of new adulty. I was actually kind of surprised with how much I really liked the protagonist. She was cool and funny and interesting and not flat, and she had a past, but it didn't define her like I see happen in so many similar kind of books. I wish that the pacing was a little better. Some scenes were really quickly sped through just to kind of get through, and I really wasn't able to sink into them. And I wish that the ending wouldn't have wrapped up so neatly and so perfectly. And there was a really cringe-worthy, really trite kind of epilogue that I think could have totally been axed completely from the book. But otherwise, I really liked the romance, and I was rooting for them, which, usually I could care less, so that was a win for me. The next book was In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. It is a story of a young woman who escapes from North Korea. And I gave this a 5 out of 5, although I found it really hard to rate this book because it's a non-fiction book, it's a memoir. So I feel like I'm rating someone's life, that's not something that I can really rate. So instead I rated this book on organization, research, narrative, structure and how it made me feel. And I was really impressed with this book. And I was also not so impressed with myself. I was very embarrassed from the beginning of how, as I was reading, how little I knew about North Korea and the culture of North Korea and the structure of North Korea and how its citizens lived and how they continue to live today. I had no idea, and I was so embarrassed, and I felt so stupid that I didn't know. So educationally, this book was amazing for me, and it's just a true testament to human resiliency, and it was a really inspiring kind of read, so I really liked it. The next book was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. It is a dystopian tale wherein women are second or even third class citizens who are prescribed societal roles from which they cannot deviate without serious punishment. I gave this a 5 out of 5. I have read this book at least 3 times, maybe 4 times, and every time I love it. It is just a classic. It is timeless. It is terrifying. The writing is frank and bleak and so sinister, and every time I read it, I love it and I get something else from it. There's actually a bookmark in here now because Tim is trying to read it, so don't mind that. But it is a tale for feminists and also for non-feminists. I think that people associate Margaret Atwood with feminism, which is true, but I think that this story is so important for anybody to read. And plus, guys, the Hulu series is coming out of The Handmaid's Tale at the end of the month, and I am so excited. It has Elizabeth Moss in it. I hope it looks really good. It looks really good. So, yes, this book will always be a 5 out of 5. Like, I thought maybe because it had been some time since I last read it, the distance may be different for me, but it was just as compelling, if not more important, upon this read, for me as an adult. So, amazing. One of my favorite books of all time. The next book I read was God is Dead by Ron Curry. So in this story, God comes to Earth in human form and then dies. And then this book is the aftermath, and it's told in an anthology type of format. I gave this a 2.5 out of 5. I thought it was a really cool premise, and because it's an anthology, some stories I really liked more than others, but ultimately it was strange. It wasn't linear. It didn't really, none of the stories kind of flowed together. There was really no, I don't know, it was just kind of too in the bizarre side for me, and I don't really dislike bizarre kind of fiction, but it was just kind of too strange for me at times. I liked the premise, I liked the concept. The ending got too, like, military focused and war focused for me, and it kind of lost me at that, so. The last book of the month I read was The Girl with the Wrong Name by Barnabas Miller. It is a YA mystery wherein a girl helps a boy that she just met track down a girl that he just met, and she films it and documents the process along the way, and it also deals with trauma and guilt. I gave this a 2.5 out of 5. I will say that it got points for me for having such a creative plot that required a lot of mental gymnastics, but ultimately it was still a little too tropey for me, and even though it was all very surprising what happened and how the plot ended up unfolding, it didn't have that shock value for me, and maybe because I didn't connect to the characters, maybe I didn't care about the characters, but whatever it was, there was some sort of disconnect for me there emotionally that even though the ending came out to be the way it was, I just found myself as a reader not really caring too much. So I don't know where that happened along the way for me, but it was just sort of like a so-so read ultimately for me. All right, so those are all the books that I read in the past 2 months besides my ebook. And I think I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I have yet to have this year like a month where I have had like a blowout number of books that I've gotten through. But I do plan on, hopefully at the end of this month, doing a couple readathons. I think I know which ones I want to do, but if you have any suggestions for readathons that are coming up that you want to see me do or that you are interested in, tell me down below what's going on, because readathons are always a good chance for me to get a couple extra books in every single month. And even though I'm on track for my reading goal on Goodreads this year, I like to sometimes just get ahead of that goal in case I have a period where I'm not getting any reading done, slump or life or whatever. So that is my past 2 months of reading, because I didn't do February because February was too wild for me, but I should be... Okay, I'm gonna get out of here. I will see you guys. Have a wonderful afternoon, and bye. See ya.